Hi everybody and welcome to my channel, and I'm sorry again about the echo in my studio, but it is almost completely cleaned out. We're moving, and that actually brings me on to the subject of today, which is something that has been requested actually a few times, and I've been meaning to get to it for ages, and now I've been forced to, and I'll explain all of that in a second. First of all, some housekeeping. My name is Debbie and I'm a mixed media artist, which means I use everything in the art shop. I don't have to stay in my aisle, and I love that. It's been a complete revelation to me actually. So yeah, that's what I do. And if you like what you see today, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. And if you have a yen to learn some art, please consider joining my Patreon. The details are in the description box below, and it's an art school basically. Mine functions as an art school more than anything else. So for $10 or thereabouts, you get about 12 art videos a month actually, and including pre-releases of this one, and a nice, thoroughly nice community to mix with. You will not see such nice people in many other places on the earth, in my opinion. It's my Patreon, so I'm allowed to have an opinion. Anyway, today is about my essentials, and I've quickly realized that this is probably an impossible task, and we're going to have more than one of these videos. But what I was asked about was, what are the colors and products that I find to be absolutely essential? What can I not work without? And it came from one of my beginners in art who wanted to know what she should go down and buy and what would be the best thing on a budget. And there's so many strings to this, and it's so difficult to sort of pin down. So I am trying very much to pin it down. The short answer for starters is it's probably well nigh impossible to encapsulate into a video for just one season and one subject. Because every time I paint something else, my color needs might change. For example, if I paint the sea, that will be different to a countryside or a fox, or something like that. I'm a nature painter and landscape painter, and what I use changes. Also, it changes with the season. It may change with the country as well. Mostly I paint Europe where I live, but occasionally I might want to paint something in another country, so that will change it. And like I said, the season, it will change. However, what I did do was I went through my book, because every time I do a video for my patrons, I write a list of what I've used in them. And what I did was I went through and I took a tally of what happened, what was used the most. And this following swatch session is a list of the things that have occurred the most often during the last year. And I've realized that I've used them the most because with moving, as I said, I've pushed myself into a corner here, because while we're moving, I've got myself an essentials kit of things that I use all the time. And I realized, well, hey, you're doing it, so let's just film it. Because I couldn't keep all of my stuff out. I had to pack a lot of it, but I want to keep creating, and I've got 2 weeks left before we actually move. Probably by the time this comes out, it will be sort of all over by the shouting, one hopes, because I'm not liking it. But so what I've done is I've put together things that I reach for often, and that made me realize that that was actually the question being asked. What do I reach for the most often? Now, there are some things that I reach for again and again that I've not included in this list because they change too frequently, and I will try to remember to put those in at the end. But to start with, we can, I've got, as you can see slightly off to the side here, I've got a little pile starting. So I'm going to put some of these aside, and we're going to start with, oh gosh, everything's going to roll. And boy, how do I love that. Put my battery operated eraser there. I use that a lot. Right, I'm going to start with pan pastels. Pan pastels, and I'm talking to you if you're, you might be a beginner, you might not be. You might just like my particular colour palette, because quite often when we learn from somebody and we look at what they're doing, what we're looking at is their colours, because in order to create the art that they're creating, quite often you have to have a similar colour palette. For example, the work that I do, and just let me see if I can reach my book here. This is my book, one of my sketchbooks. So let's just go through that just a bit, just to familiarise yourself what it is I do. The work that I do uses natural colours to paint natural landscapes, and some of these are Patreon tutorials actually. So if you've not seen them yet, they're coming up, and if you're not a Patreon, this is why you need to join, because this is what you'll learn. As the year changes, my colour palette changes and everything like that. But if, for the most part of it, if you want to do this sort of thing, the colours that I'm using are quite important, because I don't use bright colours, for example. If you were to do all of this work in bright pink and purple with splashes of neon yellow and orange, it wouldn't look like this. It'd probably look fine. I can't say that because I don't think it would. I like muted colours, but if that's your bag, then that would be a way to paint what I paint. But I use muted colours, so therefore the colours I use are just as important as the products. But you may have already seen that there are some common similarities in my work with colours. You know, for example, deep dark greens and moody colours, things like that. That's really, really important to what the whole thing ends up looking like. Anyway, I'm sure you've seen enough. That's basically what I do. I shan't do that again. I'll put that on the floor. Plenty of room on the floor because there's no furniture much in here. So the colours are really, really important. And like I said, quite often when you're studying somebody else's work, it's the colours you're looking at. So let's start somewhere. I'm going to start with pastels, and in particular pan pastels. I know these are expensive, which is why I'm going to introduce them in the following way. When you paint a landscape, and you might paint water and a sky, quite often the sky and the water will be a similar colour because the water is going to reflect the sky. Sometimes it reflects something else like trees or things like that. So you've got other greens you can use and so forth. But let's just keep it simple. For the sky, I recommend phthalo blue tint, which is this light one here, and I'll just swatch them as I'm talking about them. I like that one. That's a particularly useful one. I'm not going to swatch the white because obvious reasons, but titanium white is my second one. And like I said, I'll put a list of these up for my patrons, but if you're following along on YouTube, it's pencil and notepad time. Phthalo blue tint, titanium white are two super, super important colours. Another super important colour is raw umber tint. And this one is also great for skies and water. So if the weather's fine, you've got your phthalo blue tint and your titanium white. If it's getting a bit moody, you can add a raw umber tint because it's a really nice warm grey. I don't know if you can see that there, but there is quite a lot of yellow in the grey, which means that it's a warm colour as opposed to a really steely cold grey. I would then add to that. So those are the three. If you've only got budget for three, those are the three you need because you can do a lot of skies with these. You can do a sky that's white and grey, all white, all blue. Mind you, if it's all white, you're probably not going to worry putting that on. This is for clouds. But you can do it blue and grey, blue and white. The combinations are quite a nice amount, and it gets you through the season, which by then you're probably ready to buy another one. My next suggestion in this palette here would be either a burnt sienna tint, an orange tint, or a red iron oxide tint. And burnt sienna tint is my favourite because it goes very nicely with these other two. And what you've got there then is a sunset colour or a sunrise colour. So when you put them together, and then you've got some white if you've got clouds, all of a sudden you've added a fourth colour in, which gives you even more combinations. So you can do grey and burnt sienna, blue and burnt sienna, white all these. All four, only three, completely random, depending what you see outside. It depends whether you're making the picture up or not. Sometimes I do that. I'll just sit down and I'll paint something that I see in my imagination, what you've just seen in my sketchbook. There's a lot of them. So those are my 4 with white must-haves in that little set. Let's get that out of the way, knock everything down while I'm doing it. I've got more room than usual actually, because there's nothing in here. So I've got no excuse to be throwing stuff around. This is red iron oxide extra dark. This is right up the other end of the spectrum. Really deep red, as it says on the tin, red iron oxide extra dark. Now, as you can see, the outer reaches, when it comes out a bit and fades, very, very similar to the burnt sienna tint. They go really nicely together. You could add in a green, and if you did, it would fit, but for me it would be this chromium oxide extra dark, which is another nice one to use and plays very nicely with the other colours you're going to see here today. This is a cooler green. There are some others that I use, but this is one that I'm turning to more and more, and it is awfully useful. So what you can use these for are skies, landscapes, all of those for the landscape, water. Any of these could be reflected in the water, and it depends whether you want a ripply water or whether you want perfectly still water. These do really nice, perfectly still water and nice skies to go with them. So basically, with that small kit of 5 colours plus white, unfortunately that's not one I sort of get away from. I don't have black. I will one day have black because I have full set syndrome and I cannot stop myself from buying every colour, even though I've not used it in, well, I'm going to say 8-9 years now, but it's probably like 40 years because that's how long I've been painting. So I haven't needed black, but I'll make sure I get it. Look, fellow full set syndrome sufferers will understand what I'm talking about. But what you've got here is a colour, these darker colours, a bit of cloth there, these darker colours are great for painting the depths. They're also great for going over things and glazing them with, if you want a really dramatic dark. And like I said, these 2 colours can be sky, water, or land, and when you marry them with the other 2, plus you've got your white, you've got a lot of options. These 2 are particularly good for filling in large amounts of ground. Let me just see if I can see again in here. I've done some of these in watercolor, but I could have equally have used, let's see if I actually have now that I've said it. Might be my other book. This one here, this is a Patreon tutorial from a couple of weeks ago. On here, I've glazed over the top where I wanted shadows with these 2 to get that moody depth. And some of these deep, deep, dark greens and reds and things like that. Some of them are from this, some not. That's all gouache. Oh, here, this is the other thing I quite like to do with these pan pastels, is to make a blurry background. So it looks, you've got your subject up lovely and close, but then you've got this blurry background in the back. I don't think I've got another one in here. I may do. Like I said, I use so many different, yeah, there was one. Here's another one. Same colours, just some colours. Any of these would have done. These 2 for the darks. You can also mix them. I don't, but you can. And if you do, you get more colours. So that's the pan pastel necessaries. And I will do a PDF of this page and probably a second page. We'll see how we go. The next thing are Neocolor I. Now, Neocolor I are the poor relation of the Caran Neocolors in a lot of ways. Don't write in. They're very much overshadowed by Neocolor II. These are not the ones that you can dissolve in water. These basically, it's a wax crayon and it's a wax pastel, they call it, but those of us who've been to school recognise a crayon when they see one. These are really useful for lots of things and I use them constantly, This is my must-have two. If you only have two of these, it would be Sahara Yellow and Orange. And this one, Sahara Yellow, is one of those really nice colors. Again, goes well with these others. I use this for resist techniques. I use it for highlights. And this is my go-to orange. It's a bit dirty. They're always a bit dirty because I'm a bit of a digger. So I put things into boxes and then dig around for them. And this is the page. This is the payment for it. Orange, it's great for highlighting anything that has to be orange, like foxes and squirrels. And you've just seen a few of my foxes and squirrels. You've seen this color, the highlights on them. Really useful too. So if you only get two, these are the two that you need. I've actually put my Neocolor ones in a box with all of my Neo Arts, the new Caran range of Neo Art 6901, because they are extremely similar and it extends the color range of both. The sad thing about the Neocolor 1 is there's not a great amount of colours in the range compared to Neocolor 2s, which seem to have billions. Who knows what Caran is going to do in the future? I've got a few bees in my bonnet about that, and most of you know what they are. But these may disappear. That has been put about. I know where it come from, but you never know. It might. I don't like to say at this point, but putting them together with the Neo Arts, the new Neo Arts, which look like this smaller one, it means that you've got more colours in both range because the colours don't all overlap. There are a couple that do, I think. Yes, they do, but not all of them. So it works really well. So those two are my go-tos. And speaking of Neo Arts, we've got these, and I've got 4 of them here. You can tell which one already I use quite a bit, and it's Primrose. Again, these boring beige colours are actually super useful for filling in spaces and for doing resist techniques. And I've got a few videos about that. In the collection section, you'll find under my own techniques. It's something that I've been sort of developing for a while, and I'm further developing it. I'm going to do another updated resist technique video for my Patreon because the older one is just that. It is old. These things weren't available, and I'm doing things slightly differently now. So it's time for an update. So I shall do that very soon. Primrose is one of my favorites because it's light, and I can use it as a highlight or, like I said, as a resist. It goes really well, but doesn't argue with the other two here, even though it's very similar to the Sahara Yellow. So if on a budget, you could get one or the other, and I would get this. It's a no-brainer. I love this color. It's just perfect in most things that I need it for. White, again, I won't swatch this one, but white, really useful, fabulous, goes over a lot of things, fabulous for a highlight, fabulous for an undercoat for resist. And the other two are also predictably quite creamy pale colors. This one here, which goes very nicely with that one there, is Burnt Ochre 10%. This one is Butternut. Now, these are similar, but I feel it's worth having all of them because they're very useful and they're not the same. They're similar but not the same. So it's the same with these two. They're similar but not the same. And when you use them in a picture, you can see how not the same they really are. So those 3 are really useful. So that is, again, Primrose. That is, I can never remember colours. I don't need to because they're written on them as a rule, so I don't bother. Burnt Ochre 10% and Butternut. And then moving on to the Neocolor IIs. Now, these are the ones that are water soluble. I don't usually do that anymore. I used to, but I have a different technique now that I prefer. And you can choose. One point is this one. Now, this is out of the 50th anniversary set, the Lush set, which has a tin that looks like that. It's got the information on it. and it is differently labelled to what the, oh gosh, the doorbell. Excuse me for a second, the dog's just gone off. I'll return very shortly. Right, thank you. Sorry about that. It was the postman. That's one of the perils from working from home and having the dog with you. Because if she had have barked in here, it would have been incredibly loud. So, as I was saying, this is differently labelled, this one. It's light olive, 40% in the red tin. But it's available open stock. And if you buy it there, it's just light olive. So bear that in mind. It's the same colour. Anyway, may as well speak about this one. I love this one because it's a nice, bright but muted middle green. Speaking of bright and not muted is Chinese green. It's a bit grubby as well. That one is a surprise addition for me because normally I do not go for things that are that bright. But it's really useful. Sunshine on leaves, middle distance, and highlights birds' feathers and all sorts of things. This is a really, really useful one to have. So light olive and Chinese green are the two greens I would recommend. I'm really thingy about greens, as you'll see a bit later on when we get into some of the colours that I've mixed myself, and I do have recipes for them as well. In my opinion, which doesn't count outside my opinion, there are no nice, deep, dark, moody greens in the Neocolor II range. So, anybody from Caran listening, I flatter myself, but if you are listening to anything we say, that's what we need. Speaking of not listening to things we say, my favourite colour of 2025, I love Caput Mortuum. I collect it the way people collect Payne's Grey, you know. When you know, you know. Caput Mortuum is my Payne's Grey, and I love it, and I love this particular colour, and it's in the set for the 50th anniversary, and Caran tell me, because I asked them, that it won't be continued. I don't believe that because I can't see the point either. Probably wishful thinking. But as I've repeated before, but you might be new here, I don't think that's true. I think they would like us to snap up these sets because I don't see the point of putting all the time, money, effort and chemist's ability into creating a set of colours, never to use them again. That doesn't sound like sound business practice to me. So I don't know. I hope I'm right about that because it means that we'll be able to buy them one day open stock once all the 50th sets are sold out, because sadly the 50th anniversary sets have only got 3 new colours per set and all the others are repeats of what's in open stock. And for those of us with full set syndrome, we've got them already. So now we've got 2 of everything. Rant over. Anyway, I like this one and I use it a lot. It's the darkest, purpliest colour. It's just lovely and I can't get enough of it. I'm going to just dissolve that one so you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube. To my patrons, you'll be sick of hearing about it, so talk amongst yourselves for a bit. Look at that. It's just perfect. I love it so much. And I'm hoping we can get it again. The other one in the same set is Zinc Ochre. Now these are in the dark set. This again looks like one of those boring colours. Well, it's not in a landscape, and at this time of the year it is mandatory. It does swap out fairly well. If I can just grab here ochre from the Neocolor ones, because there's an ochre in the Neocolor IIs as well. It's not quite the same, but it's pretty damn close. And I've got some ideas and recipes on how to fake these. So if indeed we're never going to get them again, we can mix them ourselves, and we might just have to. Right, that's Neocolor and all the pastels that I wanted to talk about. So this little set here is my absolute must-have. As far as most of my work goes. And like I said, it does change from time to time during the year. It changes from subject to subject as well. Now that brings us to watercolours. I have my watercolours and I love them. Again, I didn't for ages, but I do. But with all of the watercolors I've got, now this is my green palette. It's not huge by anybody's standards. A lot of people have more, but this does me just nice. In fact, I've got spaces and I will fill them because this makes my brain itch to see empty spaces in my watercolor box. But at the moment, I'm not using more than 2 or 3 on repeat. So they are as follows. Basically, it's Holbein first. And Full Moon Yellow is one of the absolute favorites. That one is so useful. It's again quite a muted green. It's a very warm green. Most of my colors, if not all, are from the warm part of the spectrum. Even when I'm painting snow, I manage to do it with warm colors because that's just, it's my sort of where I go with things. Another similar one also from Holbein is Japanese Bush Warbler Green. And it's a bit cooler, fair bit cooler actually, but it's still a really, really nice muted green. So I use those 2 a lot according to my record book. And another one here that's got a hole dug in it, which is proof of my having used it quite a lot, is a cheapie. It's Van Gogh's Dusk Yellow. Now, this is the sort of green of which I thoroughly approve, you'll be happy to know. Goodness me, we really needed to know that, didn't we? It's so dark and so moody. The fact that it's dusk yellow, they call it, I think I just called it green, but no, it's dusk yellow. That doesn't faze me in the slightest. To me, it's green and I'm using it as a green, and you can do that. You'll see when we get to the color pencils as well. It's the same with this. I use that as a grey, even though it's burnt. It's, I think, burnt umber tint. That one there. Whatever I said it was, because that was the right bit. Raw umber tint. There we go. Sitting down and memorizing the colors would be great, but it's no point. Too many of them. I use that as a grey, and I use this as a green, even though it's actually labelled as a yellow. I don't care. I want that green, and that's the moody green that my heart lusts after. I've actually mixed one in an ink and one in a gouache so that I can get it in other mediums as well. The other thing I quite like from this particular palette is a Daniel Smith Undersea Green. Now, this is by no means a cheap option, but it is a nice, useful one. And it kind of falls somewhere in the middle of these two. It feels as though it fits with them. It's a granulating colour, not all of the others are, but this one is one. I'm not going to give it enough water here or room to move around because it doesn't matter. That's the colour it is, and that it's really nice. So those 4 greens, I use them all summer. I think even in the springtime, I'll tend to use the lighter ones, but if I want drama, I've got the option of adding the other 2 in. So those are my favourite green watercolours. My other go-to watercolours, now I've got black and grey, I've got red and pink and purple and blue, but these are the things that I can't do without, remember. So this is my brown set, which you may have seen in a previous video about swatching autumn. And what I love in here, number 1, is this Winsor & Newton Quinacridone Gold. It's just the perfect gold colour. Doesn't do anything special. There's no tricks involved. It's just a beautiful, high quality colour. And it's really nice as a glazing colour. So if you've never glazed anything, that is the colour you need if you intend to get started. Whilst we're still in the Winsor & Newton stable, Mars Black. Mars Black is like Caput Mortuum for me. I buy it in every incantation that I can get my hands on because it is just that perfect dark brown, if you want it to be. It's a really lovely non-dead black, and it can be a grey as well, depending on what you do with it. You can colour gouache with these as well. If you've got white gouache, you can colour them. They'll be a lot lighter, obviously, but you can do things like that as well. Now, what else have I written down here? And up the top here, Mijello, I'm not saying that right, I realise that, but you will, I'm sure, know what I mean. This one is a coffee brown. And it's, again, it's a cooler brown than some of the others. It's got a little granule of caput mortuum from the Neocolor II there. That one, and bronze brown, same brand, Mijello. And it's got that purpley caput mortuum-y look about it. I've been using these a lot. I have got a caput mortuum somewhere, but I don't use it for some reason. Don't know why. It's one of my favourite colours, as I said. My ink bottles, and I've got a big bottle of caput mortuum ink here. You can see by the size in my hand, it's going down at a fast rate of knots. And the watercolour I haven't touched yet. I suspect that it is a case of having far too much and only needing some things, but not actually being able to get the message. Those are my go-to watercolours. And I think you can see here, building the colours, that they're a nice, quite muted, with the exception of the orange and the Chinese green. They're quite a muted colour palette, but muted doesn't mean dull. And I think this is something that we need to point out as many times as it needs until the message sinks in. It doesn't mean dull. Right, the next one is gouache, and I have got a list of, there's a video up on my Patreon, and there are lists of the recipes that I've used for these. The first one is my sand neutral. So I made a neutral sand color. Again, it goes with some of these other things here and is really nice for toning colors down and also for filling in landscapes and things like that. So that's absolutely one that I've used a lot. Gosh, huge desk, nothing on it, still can't find a space. And the next one here is my dark green. Again, there is a recipe, and this one is in the same vein as these others. That's what I call a green. That's what I'm after in a green. A warm, yellowy, deep, deep colour. That's the goal. And I use some of these others as well. I've got a nice Mars Black in here too that I use quite a bit. That will interchange sometimes with the Mars Black watercolour. So you don't need both, you can have one or the other, because gouache and watercolour, whilst by no means are they the same thing, they are cousins, not brother and sister. And they could be seen as an opaque form of watercolour if you use them thinned down, which I do. You'll see here I've not used them out of the tube. I let them dry in the palette, and then I've bought these Kuretake tins. Anyway, the Japanese watercolour tins. They're quite big, as you can see. Quite big compared to the titchy little half pans. They're huge. So they're great to get a brush into, and they're great to put a lot of gouache into. You can see some of it's broken up a little bit. That doesn't worry me in the slightest. I'll wet that and it will come back to life and fight another day. Some don't, different brands, depends what you're using. But by all means, I'm not worried about that. The only thing I'm worried about is that it will fall out when I open the tin, because I have to watch that. But I know that, so I look after it. And so if this happens to you and you have cracking in your gouache, do not let it rob you of your sleep. This one is a Talons Warm Grey. And this is also one that's very useful. Again, warm, goes with all the other warm colours. And like the beige, it is a really nice neutral to have on hand. So that, and so that's Talons Warm Grey. Super, super needed, I find. Right, that is all of that sort of stuff. Let's get to the next one. The next one is the coloured pencil section. Get rid of my brush there. Coloured pencils, and you can see by some of these, when you see them at all, that is, that they're actually quite small. I do indeed practice what I preach. None of these are full size because I use them. That's why they're on this list. So let's start off in groups. We'll start off with Derwent Drawing. This is, if I grab a full-size one, you can see if you've not seen Derwent drawing before, it's got a larger core and it's got a larger barrel than the Derwent Lightfast. You can see it's slightly meatier. And it's got the orange barrel as well. Yellow ochre is super important. And Chinese white is, in my opinion, the best white on the market. I know Holbein have one, and if you love that, then that's your favourite. This one's my favourite. And I went through a whole lot, and there's a video. I went through a whole lot to find that one, and it's white, Chinese white. I haven't got anything on here that's dry enough to go over, but yeah, it goes over stuff. It's not going to go over it if it's wet though. As I've said before, and say it again here, drop your pencil. Always drop your pencil. It's what makes you a good artist. You must make sure that your first layer is dry before adding coloured pencil, because coloured pencil won't work over anything that's wet. This one has, because it's a damn good colour pencil. Actually, that was never wet, so of course it's going to. But here, it's not working to its fullest because it's wet. And that's a lot of the time a sticking point with new artists. They'll look at something and say, well, you know, I saw you do it on YouTube, or I saw you do it on Patreon. It's not working for me. Dry your underlayer, and it will. Right, let's see. What's the next brand? Well, let's keep going here with our Derwent Lightfast. Same stable, different product. Derwent Lightfast Mars Black, Derwent Lightfast Forest. This here is worth selling family members to get, and I will use this until it's about this long and the wheels have completely fallen off it. It is one of these greens, and this one is light aqua, which could be sharper, but it isn't. Anyway, and I haven't swatched the white for the usual reasons. Forest. It's the same dirty grey green, but boy, does it add style to your work. Like I said, if you've got a spare family member that could fetch a few pounds, sell them, because you can buy a couple of these actually, depending on who you sell. Forest, it can be a grey, it can be a green, it goes beautifully with all these other colours, and it gives you those depths, the deep, dark depths. So when you put them all together, you can get such drama in your work, but it's muted, and it depends what you do with it. It can be anything at all. So as long as you're after, when I say anything at all as long as you're after a grey or a green grey. But perfect. Forest by Derwent Lightfast. You can see by the size of it. Light aqua. I love this. I use it whenever I need a glimpse of sky through trees, and I need to make sure they stay a bit cleaner. I don't care as a rule, because sometimes when I want to do something for a bird, on a bird wing, that sort of granule that's stuck in there, probably from the forest, it works beautifully. Really, really nice to get natural flecks in a bird's wing, so I don't clean them. Mars Black again. Mars Black watercolor. I have a Mars Black gouache. Mars Black is second to my Caput Mortem as far as great loves are concerned. And why I love this is another chameleon. So if you're on a budget and you're buying art things and you're thinking, well, look, what do I buy? You buy as much as possible that will do more than one thing. It's as simple as that. So if I add, this can be dark brown, and it really is dark brown. But if I burnish it with white, which I've now broken because I've put too much pressure on it. Do I have any more at all? Oh God, I know there's one somewhere. Otherwise I can always sharpen that one rather than getting excited about it. If I burnish this with Chinese white, it's purple. It's got a purple undertone, and it's so valuable because, again, it can be a black. It's as near as, damn it, it's a black. That's almost a black. So you don't need another black. There is a black coming up, just to disprove that. But it's more functional as a deep dark brown or as a purple if you burnish over the top with a lighter colour. So, and you know, burnishing with different colours will subtly throw different tones, very, very subtle. but you can do different things. I rarely bother, but you can. Finally, Caran. Where would we be without Caran, whether I'm cross with them or not, about the Caput Mortem Neocolor? I'll get over it. Black. If you're going to have a black, this is a good one. The Derwent Drawing also have a black, and that's not it. That's chocolate. That's another good one, by the way. These also have, but because it is so thick, as you can see here, the core and the barrel is so much thicker, you can't do the fine work you can, and I put too much pressure on my white then and broke it. That was on me, not the product. That's my own fault. But this is a beautiful creamy black, and in its place, it is just second to none. But for finer work, this is a nice black. It's a lovely colour black, and it's got a fine point, and it holds the point, bit of granules. Again, we don't want to worry about these small things. There are worse things happening in the world than a couple of granules on a coloured pencil. Yeah, so it's a really good black. This here is raw umber 50%. And you will notice if you buy the pastels here, these Neocolors, wherever I've put them, dropped them or eaten them or something. These are Luminance 6901. These are NeoArt 6901, and the colours match quite well. There's only one I've found that was completely off. They match very, very well. This is not the match, but if we were to have a rummage, we would find some. Not every pencil has a pastel. I hope that means that Caran are going to make some more NeoArts in the future. When they first come out, I wasn't sure where they fit into my particular mixed media practice, but they really do, and I use them daily. I can't remember the last time I painted anything at all where I didn't reach for one. I mean, there was a cupboard in the bathroom, but apart from that, you know, this. So raw umber 50% is another one of those ones like these that I use as a grey, even though it isn't. So it's just got that warm grey, the warmth that I want. This is an actual warm grey. That's the pencil equivalent. There is a pan pastel equivalent. And again, if I want it in one medium, I'll often buy it in every medium so that I can mix and match, because I like everything. This one is actually French grey. And you might argue that you don't need both. Again, a little bit like these and a little bit like these, it's similar, but certainly not the same. And I really do argue for both. Combined with these colours here, they make a really nice cottage. Let me see if I can find one now I've said that. See, these are all done with that. I think there was one, that church was. These are done with that, using my resist technique. All of these cottages use my resist technique. So that's, oh, this one here is probably the latest one with these colours all together make a cottage. And that's why there's a shine on my work, by the way. A lot of people ask, do I, this one's not finished, by the way. It's what I'm working on at the moment. A lot of people ask me, do I fix my pages? I fix my pages with hairspray, but only if I use pan pastels or other soft pastels. For other things, what you're seeing here as a shine that's a bit of Liquid-X marker because I got cross with the colour I was using. But normally it's just a build-up of all the waxes. All the pencils and all the pastels, everything's waxy, so it builds up. Right, in that cottage you will have also seen Burnt Ochre 50%, which is another one. And I adore that one as well. It's just got that lovely warmth, and it's perfect as a coloured pencil. It's a must-have in the kit. And last but not least is my absolute favourite, which is Green Ochre. This one occurs in, it's on rotation. My trees in the summer are made up from the gouache that I mix myself with forest, yellow ochre by Derwent Drawing, Derwent Lightfast, and Caran Green Ochre. Those three, and I will paint trees like that all summer. And they always tend to look a bit different for the simple reason that you can't, well, I can't repeat things. I can't copy things. As I've said before, my career as a forger is over before it happens. I've recently discovered quite a like that is deepening into a love for Holbein coloured pencils. but I don't use them enough yet to include them in a list like this. There are some emerging favourites, but I might revisit this a bit later and we can do an add-on session. Right, the next thing would be ink, and I use several sorts of ink. These are Raw and Klingner Antique ink. This one is a Raw and Klingner sketch ink. Then I've got some Daler Rowney FW acrylic ink. This one is the same brand and the same one, and this is my own mixture. So let's leave that one and let's start at the beginning. Sketch ink. This one probably needs a bit more of a shake than that. This one is my Fox and Red Squirrel ink. And it's just that right colour. Now you can probably imagine that with the orange up the top here, this is going to work quite well together. Shade it with that one, highlight it with that one. And again, I have a lot of videos on that. Now this is a conversation for another time, and I've just managed to spill ink everywhere. And it had to be my favourite. That must mean my lid's not on properly. But this is a nice one, as you can see. I don't need to swatch it now because I've swatched it accidentally all over the bloody place. This is typical of me. As my regulars will know, something's always getting spilled. This one is antique ink and it's Caput Mortuum. Beautiful to use with a dip pen. Just let me pop that on properly. We all remember the Peroline brown bloodbath when I was doing that a couple of videos ago. A couple of months ago now, good grief, it feels like yesterday. Cautious shake. I ended up with a colour all over my fingers that you would never have been able to explain away if police had have stopped me. This one's called Bister and it's a dark, dark brown. Also very useful. It's got that slight pinky purpley look in it and it works well with everything else. Again, dip pen heaven. So if you're doing anything that requires fine work and things like that, these inks are second to none. This one is Payne's Grey and it's an acrylic ink and it is beautiful when you want a dark blue, night sky, ripples on the water. That's what I use when I paint water and I want to paint some movement on the water. I use this one. So that is an absolute must-have. But the one that you need to run down and buy today is Antelope Brown, which is, again, mostly in the autumn I'll use this one. This is a greeny brown, and it's another one of these chameleon colours that can be several things. As you can see, it's an odd colour to pin down. A little bit of water in it there. But it's the most beautiful and useful colour. So that's an absolute must in my opinion. Absolute must. And last but not least, and again, there's a recipe for this ink. This is the one I mix myself from several acrylic inks. And it's because I really want the darkest of greens. And it's that green again. As you can see, I've tried to copy it from the gouache that I mix. So that's the gouache I mix, and that's the ink I mix, and it's acrylic ink. Again, great in a dip pen, fabulous for this time of the year. Right, let's have a bit of a clean up here. I was hoping to use both of these pages, but now look. Right, so that's ink. Now, next one is a bit of a controversial topic because I haven't got a lot on purpose, and it's the watercolour markers. The one I'm putting in that I absolutely must have is my Winsor & Newton Pro Marker in yellow ochre, and this, as you can see, has had some use. It's that quinacridone gold again, same as the Quin Gold. You could argue that you don't need both, and you certainly don't, because they're just different delivery systems. But, you know, we're coming up to gift giving season where people are asking what size socks you take, so best to head them off and tell them that you've enough socks to last you until the next millennium. However, you can't live on that long without this, because perhaps they'll buy you something, they take pity and buy you something. It's wonderful for glazing. It's fabulous for this time of the year when you want that golden glow in your work. Like I said, yes, it is very similar to the Quin Gold watercolor, but it's not the same. And this is another case in point that's important to reconcile. And I did do a small piece on this with our Blackberries watercolor versus watercolor markers on YouTube, and also naturally on Patreon a couple of months ago now, by the time this goes out. Even though these are similar colors and they're similar products, this is a watercolor marker, that is a watercolor. They're not the same in principle. They should be the same, but they're not. For example, this one has just got more life in it. The other one sinks straight into the page like an ink, and it behaves more like an ink than a watercolor. That means it's very difficult to remove if you make a mistake as well, whereas you can worry away at that for a bit with a brush and lift it to a certain extent, depending on the color. Anyone who's used watercolor for a while will know that. Whereas this, good luck. And like I said, it behaves more like the inks, which is why I've got it down here with the inks. It's only up here for color comparison. And it feels more dead, is the way I described it when we did the Blackberries. And I'm still going to stick to that. This has more life in it. You can see different sort of, even though it's not a granulating color like the ones either side of it, it's a really more, it's got some variation in it, which this just doesn't. However, I still have it in my kit because it's such a useful thing. Now, there are lots of other watercolor markers and their ilk, like, for example, the Albrecht Dürer ones, which if I grab one, that's one of those here. That's what they look like. Then there are the famous Tombos and Lyras, and the Faber-Castell Aqua, Goldfarber Aqua, all of these. I've not included these in this particular swatch because I don't use any one enough to create a pattern of use to say this is an essential. This is all about, if you're going to go down shopping today, what are you going to buy? I use these from time to time, so if you're in the shop and you can afford a couple, get some. Have a look at the season. As you can see, these are all quite earthy tones. I go towards the warm side of the spectrum, but I don't use them enough in any of my painting to make it worth saying about. There's a Caput Mortuum in the Goldfarber Aqua, which is quite nice. But again, I don't reach for it enough. I go with this usually. So I'm not including them in this. Now, the exception to that is this here. And these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush Markers, which I use endlessly at this time of the year and going into winter. So let's work backwards, winter back to autumn. This here is dark green, and this particular color is how I paint my fir trees. It's so fine, but so dark and rich. And as you can see, you can get minuscule, fine little marks with it. It's just beautiful. So that's the dark green. So that's the one you need for winter, and you can paint all your evergreens with it. Then in the autumn, coming back to autumn leaves. This one here is light brown. And I have a few of these on purpose because that's how I'll show you a picture in a minute. Dark oatmeal. I use all of these colors together to create autumn leaves. This one is brown. We're getting darker now. So it's a nice reddish sort of burnt sienna color. And then we have got deep brown. I'll hold this up again in a second. They're really juicy. They're a proper brush and they are fabulous. So as you can see there, they make really, really nice expressive little marks. And I don't think that I have in this particular one, I don't think I've got a fir tree in here. No, because I'm afraid we were already going into summer. Yeah, I haven't got anything. However, these sorts of grasses, that's where I will use them. in summer. Yeah, you're going to have to believe me about the fir trees, because I painted this with them. This was a tutorial for my patrons. Willow tree leaves. You need more than just one green. You need 2 or 3 greens. Whichever colour you're getting, if you can possibly afford it or find a relative that you can blackmail, go through your photo albums. You'll have something from the 70s or 80s that you can blackmail family members with, and that's how you get more than one green. So I tend to go for 3 or 4 of the one colour to add richness. So this has got about 3 or 4 different greens in it as well, which makes it look fuller. But yeah, there's no fir tree in sight yet. We're not... These ferns I did with them as well, and these leaves here in the back are what I've used these colours here for. So this is an example of that. And what else? Some of these too. I think that was, I can't remember because I made the video of this a couple of weeks ago and everything's so fraught at the moment. Okay, here's the best example. This was watercolour and ink, but the tips of the trees here where the leaves are actually falling off, I've used this one here. This is brown, light brown. And underneath here on the ground, all of them, just to get a nice layer of leaves down there. I thought there was another one as well. Yeah, these here. These, this was done with an acrylic marker. These are all the other colours, just these 4 colours, and used in different combinations, that sort of thing. The next thing that I've not included on this sort of swatching session are my acrylic markers. And the reason is because I use them all sorts of colours in all sorts of different ways. And these don't come in open stock either. All of these others are available apart from the Caran special edition colours, which you have to buy their tin. These are not in open stock. So what I'm going to say here is not the colours I would buy, because I can't. You can't just pick the one out of this and the one out of that. You'll end up buying boxes and boxes and boxes, because they've got about 20 per set, give or take. And I think there are some differences in sizes for sets. I know the black and white come in a set of 6, but the others come in sets of 20, and the colours are all amazing. I would recommend every single one, and if I could afford it, I would buy all of them, and will eventually. But I can recommend some sets. So number 1 set that I love to start with is the Earth set. It's got a really nice selection of colours, which I don't have all here, but it has beautiful colours and they're earthy, muted tones, as you would imagine. The next set that I would recommend is a surprise one, actually, and that is the Greys set. And the folks at Art, and this is a family startup based in California. So I thought that they were another one of those cheap Amazon brands. And this is not a sponsored thing. I paid for everything you've seen here before, plus some. I really like to support them because I know what they're doing now, and the colours are just amazing, and by supporting them we're just encouraging them to make more and more and more colours, which is fabulous. So the Earth set is number 1. The Greys set is a second one that I would recommend, and what they've actually done, as I was going to say, is they've stretched the grey colours group to make it into a complete spectrum, and it's got, in that set, there are some colours that you would never have put into the greys, a little bit the way I have here. So for example, as it starts with white and ends with black, so you get black and white in the set, which is awfully handy. And then you get all these other colours, all the colours that you would consider to be grey, but then also colours like these, that, there's a couple of purple looks, I would have called them purple. There's a couple of greeny looking ones in there. So the greys is a really, really good set to have, and the Earth is a good set to have. Moving on from that, I would go with yellows and greens. And of course, if you've got birthdays coming up, or indeed the first lot of blackmail was successful, you can try that again. And browns are good as well. So yeah, put them all on the list. I have got some very fat markers, but I'm not going to include them in here because I don't use them enough at either. That is going to change as I go into winter, because where the ground is bare, you need more interesting texture to fill in your pictures with. So that's where I'll be starting to reach for weird stuff like these. And I have a lifelong devotion to Liquitex, but it's not the best one for layering over the top of. I'm sorry about that, folks. You do a great job, but it's not the best one for that. You can also make your own. This is exactly the same deal, except I made it. There are videos on that and bits and pieces around. So I'm not putting those in. I'm so sorry if that disappoints anybody, but like I said, this had to be the things that I can't live without. And this would be them, plus this bloodbath over here. Yeah, so I do hope that you enjoyed that and you managed to get something from it, especially if you're learning and putting a kit together. And if you like my work, big thank you. These are the colors that I use and that I reach for the most often. As I said, I'm going to label this up and put it as a PDF for Patreon, so you don't have to write the list. Of course, if you want to, you can. But yeah, this is it, and they are a particularly nice lot of colors. There's enough variation to do a hell of a lot of things, actually, and you can mix them. So if you want more things, you can mix them up. Just noticing that my Pro Marker and the Fox Orange, let's call it Carmen, they have dried almost exactly the same on this paper. And I say on this paper because that changes as well. This is a Jackson Art, one of their home brand sketchbooks, which is perfect for spilling ink everywhere and making swatches. So yeah, I'll put some labels on this so you know what you're doing, and that will be a very messy PDF, but quite handy, one hopes. So I shall bid you a fond adieu. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and a comment if you have the time. I'm having a bit of an issue at the moment getting back to everybody's comments because, like I said, we're moving house, but that will change back to the usual practice in the future of actually responding. And don't forget, if you like my teaching and speaking style and you like my artwork and would like to learn how to do that, do consider supporting my Patreon. It's extremely cheap and reasonably good value, one hopes. So I would love to see you there. Right, I'm going to sign off now and start labeling all of these before I forget where I'm up to. Bye for now. Bye.